I'm 79 years old. I say that out loud now because it still surprises me. Some mornings I wake up and feel like I'm 42. Oh no, I'm already late for something. I'm already thinking about what needs to get done. Then I sit up, feel the stiffness in my back, the quiet in the house, and I remember where I really am in time.
I didn't plan to tell this story. I don't think anyone ever does. You just reach a point where the days ahead are clearly fewer than the days behind, and something in you loosens. You stop protecting the version of yourself you used to be. You stop defending your choices. You just tell the truth, because there isn't much point in holding it anymore. I spent my best years being busy. Not reckless. Not cruel. Just busy. And I miss what mattered most. I'm not saying this from bitterness. It's heavier than that. It's quieter. It's the kind of realization that sits with you when the house is silent, and there's no one left to impress. These days, time feels different. It doesn't rush anymore. It stretches. A single afternoon can feel long, especially when there's no one calling, no one expecting you. I notice things I never used to notice. How the light moves across the floor. How slow the kettle is. How often I replay old conversations in my head, not because they were dramatic, but because they were ordinary. And ordinary is what I didn't stay for. I'm telling you this because I won't be around forever. And because I know what it's like to believe there will always be another chance to pay attention later. When you're young or even middle-aged, you don't think in terms of finality. You think in terms of schedules, deadlines, next year, after this project, after things settle down. You live as if life is a series of temporary sprints that will eventually lead to a calmer place where you can finally show up fully. I believe that for decades. In my 20s, I was eager, not greedy, just eager to prove I was responsible. I had a job that demanded long hours, and I wore that like a badge of honor. I liked being needed. I liked being reliable. When people said, "He's always working," I took it as a compliment. I told myself I was building something. Security, stability, a future that would make everything else easier later on. Back then, the days were full. Not meaningful in a deep way, but full. Wake up early, commute, work through lunch, come home tired, eat quickly, fall asleep with my mind still running. On weekends, I was either catching up on work or too exhausted to be present in any real way. There were people around me then. A partner, friends, family members who called just to talk. I didn't ignore them outright. I just postponed them. I said things like, "Can we do this another time?" Or "This week is just crazy." Or "Let's plan something soon." Soon became a very flexible word. At the time, nothing felt wrong. That's the dangerous part. My life didn't look like a mistake. It looked responsible, organized, forward-moving. If you had asked me then whether I was happy, I probably would have said yes. Or at least said I was fine. But fine is a tricky thing. Fine can cover a lot of absence. I remember evenings where my partner would be talking to me about something small, something that didn't need fixing. And I'd half listen, nodding, already thinking about the next day. I was there physically, but I wasn't really there. I thought that counted. I thought presence was about proximity. I didn't understand that attention is its own form of love. In my 30s, things escalated. More responsibility, a better title, more expectations. People depended on me at work, and I liked that feeling. It made me feel solid, necessary, important. I told myself that once I reached a certain level, I'd slow down, that this intensity was temporary. I said that for 20 years. There were moments I missed that I only realized mattered later. A birthday dinner cut short because I had an early meeting. A weekend trip canceled because something urgent came up. A quiet look from someone who wanted me to stay just a little longer and didn't ask because they already knew the answer. None of these moments felt tragic at the time. That's something I want you to understand. The cost didn't announce itself. It whispered. It blended into routine. It hid behind reasonable excuses. I didn't fail dramatically. I succeeded my way into emptiness. By my 40s, the rhythm was set. Work came first because it always had. Relationships adjusted around it, or they didn't. I told myself that everyone makes sacrifices, that this was just adulthood, that this was what being dependable looked like. What I didn't notice was how quiet my life was becoming emotionally. Conversations stayed practical. Checklists replaced curiosity. I knew what people did, but not how they felt. And eventually, they stopped telling me. I thought we were all just busy. Looking back now, from where I sit, I can see the pattern clearly. But living inside it, day by day, it felt normal. That's what makes this hard to explain. Without sounding like I'm blaming my younger self, I don't hate him. He was doing what he thought was right. He just didn't know the price would be paid all at once, at the end. I didn't know that love doesn't wait patiently forever. That people don't stay frozen in time until you're ready to show up. That life doesn't hold your place. Now, at 79, I have a lot of time to think. And what I think about most isn't what I accomplished. It's what I postponed. It's the conversations I assumed could happen later. The presents I thought I could offer once I'd earned the right to rest. I earned the rest. I just didn't earn back what I traded for it. This is the part of the story where things begin to narrow, where the accumulation of small choices starts to show its weight, where something happens that can't be undone. By the time I reached my 50s, something had already shifted, though I didn't have language for it yet. The pace hadn't slowed, but the meaning had thinned. Work was no longer exciting. It was just necessary. Habitual. I kept going because stopping felt unfamiliar, and unfamiliar felt dangerous. People around me were changing. Parents aging. Friends drifting. Children growing into versions of themselves that no longer waited at the door for me to come home. I noticed these things in passing, the way you notice weather through a window. It registered, but it didn't stop me. I remember my father's hand starting to shake, slightly at first. He joked about it. I laughed along. I told myself I'd visit more once this busy season ended. That season never really ended. He learned not to expect me. That part hurts to admit. He didn't complain. He just adjusted. That's how it usually goes. People don't yell when you're absent. They recalibrate. They lower the volume of their needs until they're barely audible. There were holidays where I showed up late, mentally elsewhere, already planning my exit. I sat at tables without tasting the food. I nodded through conversations. I was polite. I was distant. I told myself it was temporary fatigue. What it really was erosion. Nothing broke all at once. Things wore down. Slowly. Quietly. Like footsteps on a floorboard you walk across every day until one morning it creaks. And you can't remember when it started weakening. There was a moment. I don't remember the exact date. When I realized I didn't know my own partner very well anymore. We lived in the same house. We shared logistics. But we didn't share ourselves. We talked about schedules, bills, plans. Not fears. Not dreams. Not disappointments. I assumed that depth would return when life got easier. It didn't. By my 60s, the gaps were undeniable. Relationships I thought were solid had thinned into occasional calls. Some people stopped calling altogether, not out of anger, out of acceptance. They had learned who I was available to be, and I had taught them that lesson myself. The turning point didn't come with fireworks. It came with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. A simple sentence delivered without ceremony. Someone I loved was gone. Not suddenly, but permanently. I remember standing there, holding the phone, and feeling something collapse inside me. Not just grief. Recognition. A sharp, clear understanding that there would be no later for this person. No long conversation someday. No making up for missed time. I had believed time was patient. It isn't. It's indifferent. At the funeral, I listened to people share memories. Ordinary moments. Laughs. Shared silences. I realized how few of those I had contributed. I had been part of the outline of their life, not the substance. That realization stayed with me long after the chairs were folded and the room emptied. After that, I tried in small ways to change. I reached out more. I stayed longer on calls. But by then, the rhythm was set. The distance had become familiar to everyone, including me. You can't always step back into a closeness that has learned how to survive without you. Some relationships warmed a little. Others remained polite. A few were simply gone. This is the part people don't like to talk about. The part where effort comes late. Where intentions improve but consequences remain. Where you realize that love is not just about feeling. It's about timing. I don't sit here blaming anyone else. I wasn't unlucky. I wasn't wrong. I just kept choosing later over now, and now eventually ran out. These days, when I look back, what surprises me most is how normal it all felt while it was happening. How easy it was to confuse motion with meaning. How convincing productivity can be when it promises safety and delivers distraction. I'm not angry with my younger self, but I grieve for what he didn't notice slipping away. Now, in my late 70s, the days are simpler. They have to be. My body decides the pace more than my ambition ever did. I wake up early, not because I need to, but because sleep doesn't home the way it used to. The mornings are quiet. Too quiet, sometimes. This is when the memories come, not in a rush, one at a time. They don't arrive to punish me. They just arrive because there's finally space for them. I think about the people who are no longer here. Some died. Some just drifted so far out of my life that they might as well have. There are names I haven't said out loud in years. Faces I can still picture clearly, even though I couldn't tell you what they'd be doing now. What hurts isn't that life ended. Life always ends. What hurts is knowing how much of it I wasn't fully inside while it was happening. There are things that can't be fixed. That's a hard sentence to sit with, especially in a world that likes to believe everything is reparable. It isn't. Some doors close quietly and never reopen. Some people move on in ways that don't circle back to you. I don't get another chance to be a younger partner. I don't get another chance to show up when it would have mattered most. I don't get to rewind to an ordinary Tuesday and stay present instead of distracted. Those moments are gone. Completely. Not waiting somewhere. Not resting. Gone. I've learned that regret isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It settles in like a weight you carry without complaining. You still eat. You still laugh sometimes. But there's a gravity to your thoughts that wasn't there before. Sometimes I imagine what it would have been like if I had worked a little less and listened a little more. Not dramatically less. Just enough to notice. Enough to stay in a room instead of always moving toward the next obligation. I wonder who I might have been remembered as. Because here's another quiet truth. You're remembered less than you think. Not because you didn't matter, but because memory favors presence over productivity. People remember how you made them feel when you were with them, not how busy you were, not how hard you worked. I used to think being needed was the same as being loved. It isn't. Being needed keeps you useful. Being present keeps you close. Now, when someone does call, I answer, even if I'm tired, even if there's nothing important to say. Especially then, silence shared is still sharing. There are moments of gratitude, too. I don't want to pretend otherwise. I'm grateful I can still reflect, that I'm still here to tell the truth, that I learned, even if late. Late learning is still learning. It just comes with loss attached. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, and you almost certainly are, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I don't believe in giving instructions at this age. Life doesn't follow advice very well anyway. I'll just tell you what I wish I had understood. Busy feels important, but it isn't always meaningful. Later feels safe, but it's an assumption, not a promise. People don't need your perfection. They need your attention. You don't have to abandon your responsibilities to show up. You just have to notice when you're using responsibility as a reason to stay distant. There are conversations you think you'll have someday. Some of them won't happen, not because you chose wrong, but because time is not sentimental. It doesn't save things for us. If this meant something to you, you can sit with it. You don't need to act dramatically. Just notice who you keep postponing. Notice how often you say soon. Soon is fragile. As for me, I'm making peace with what is. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It just means I'm not fighting the truth anymore. I live more quietly now, more honestly, with fewer illusions about how much time is left. When my time comes, and I know it will, I don't think I'll be thinking about my work. I'll be thinking about faces, voices, moments I stayed for, and moments I didn't. I can't change how my story went. I can only tell it clearly. That's what this is. Not a warning, not a lesson, just a man near the end, finally saying out loud what took him a lifetime to understand. If this story stayed with you longer than you expected, you're not alone. These are the kinds of truths that don't shout. They sit quietly and wait for us to be ready. That's why this channel exists. Truths We Ignore is a place for stories like this. Honest reflections, lived regrets, and moments people rarely say out loud until time forces them to. There's no fixing here, no pretending, just real voices, real lives, and the things we tend to overlook while we're busy surviving. If you found yourself thinking about your own life while listening, consider staying. Subscribe to Truths We Ignore so these stories can find you when you need them, not when an algorithm decides you're ready. New stories are shared regularly, each one told slowly, carefully, and without trying to impress. And if you're willing, leave a comment, not to perform, just to say what this brought up for you. Sometimes reading another person's truth helps us face our own a little more gently. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sitting with something uncomfortable. This is Truths We Ignore.